Good evening.
Call the meeting to order. Everybody please bow their heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the ability to come out tonight. We ask that you be with this commission as we go through the issues facing us. We also ask that you be with our first responders and medical staff as they continue to fight this pandemic that we're in. We also ask that you be with our veterans and their families wherever they may be. These things we ask in thy name. Amen. Mr. Minister,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we're going to open it up for public comment. I have two here. Dale, please, when you get up there, state your name and where you live.
I think he was for just the short-term rental.
The short-term rental?
Yeah, and then Michael Self was on the public comment one.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Michael. Yeah, if you got general public comment.
Hello, I'm Michael Self, live 553 South Lane, Farm, Virginia. I thank the board for the consideration. They've been having put up with me for the last 2 or 3 months, but maybe we come in there and close with that. You're asking for support for this whole project shortly, but I know it's open comment. What I come to say was, I'm sure everyone else in the county too, I got 2 of them, volunteer fire departments asking for donations. They seen the entire need. I think it's a good cause. I'm asking everyone in here to give till it hurts. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak? Did you get that? Hearing none. Is there anyone else? We'll close public comment. Approval of the minutes for May the 10th, 2021. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? I do have one. It's on page 8 at the bottom. This was my mistake when I said Virginia Power. It's not Virginia Power. It shows my age. It's Dominion Energy. So if you change that from Virginia Power to Dominion Energy. Are there any other additions or corrections?
Yes, sir. Page 10. Middle of the page, large paragraph, 3rd line up from the bottom of that paragraph, Mr. Lewis added that cost will be insured by the company. It should be incurred by the company. And that's all I have.
Anything else? If not, do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hands. Right hand. All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now go in public hearing for proposed amendments to section 157.036 C6 of Richmond County Code of Ordinances. Morgan, you want to?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Mrs. Mothershead couldn't be with us tonight. She had an emergency she had to tend to, so I'm going to fill in and try to get through these public hearings on these two ordinance amendments that we're looking to do tonight as best as I can. She's been kind of running these processes, so I'll do the best I can with them. I will read the public notice. According to section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia is amended, and pursuant to section 15.2.2285 of the Code of Virginia is amended, the Richmond County Planning Commission hereby gives notice that a public hearing will be held tonight starting at 7 p.m. in the Richmond County Public Meeting Room, 101 Court Circle, Warsaw, Virginia, for the following. First public hearing is to receive public comment on proposed amendments to section 157.036C6 special exception uses of the Richmond County Code of Ordinances. And then the second one is to receive public comment on the proposed addition to the Richmond County Code of Ordinances to include short-term registry. First public hearing tonight is for what we're calling the produce auction. Trying to make sure nobody's jumping in on Zoom while I'm up here too. So our produce auction ordinance is in front of you, and this is stemmed from some of our newer citizens to the county over the last couple of years, the Amish and Mennonite populations that are doing a lot of business in the Farnham, Emerton area of the county. They want to create a produce market, a produce auction. And until this amendment, it was a use not provided for in our zoning ordinance. It wasn't a special exception, it wasn't a permitted use, it was a use not provided for, and a use not provided for, you just can't do it. So under number 6, under special exception uses, there has been added an amendment to livestock auction markets, and that has been scratched. Let me get it down to where we're looking. So in red lettering there, you'll see livestock auction market, which was a previously special exception use, has been scratched in favor of the terms auction markets, including livestock, produce, and other agricultural products. We believe that that is all-inclusive of what this ordinance is trying to do. I believe that is really the only addition under this special exception, under this ordinance amendments for a special exception. So provided someone wishes to apply, they would still come back to this board, the Board of Supervisors, for a special exception use. It's not being put in as a by right use, it'll be a special exception use. So that's the ordinance amendment in front of you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about that.
Those in the commission have any questions from Morgan at this time?
Morgan, one question on that. If someone would want to start a market of that nature, is this something that would be done on private property owned by a citizen in the county, or is it something that our county would sponsor in any way, shape, or form, or just?
I would say the intent of this ordinance would be for private property, for private industry, private businesses. You know, the town of Warsaw has recently started, you know, a similar type farmers market
Right.
On the Fridays, and I'm sure if the county ever wished to sponsor something like that, it would fall under this as well. And I don't know if the county is going to come ask the county for a special exception to do it. It's certainly not in our plans right now. It's something that the private industry seems to be taking pretty good care of recently. But I would imagine the intention of this ordinance is for the private sector.
Any other questions, Commission? I open up the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Is there anyone from Zoom that would like to speak on this? If not, hearing none, close the public hearing. Is there any further questions from the board? If not, take to accept or deny.
I make a motion, we accept the ordinance as modified.
Second.
Second. All those agree, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay, passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Second public hearing of the evening is to receive public comment on proposed addition to the Richmond County Code of Ordinances to include a short-term rental registry. And as we have discussed over the past several months, as we've been considering this was somewhat of a directive of the Board of Supervisors asking the Planning Commission to look into this. This is an issue that the counties are seeing over the last couple of years. People renting out their private residences for short-term rentals through the Airbnb markets or the VRBO markets. And we're seeing a little bit of it. We're not seeing it to the extent that some of our neighboring counties are, just because of our location and our lack of waterfront property. The majority of these Airbnbs are on your waterfront properties. I think last time we looked, there was somewhere between 10 and 12 of these that we've been able to identify within the county to date. 80 to 90% of them are on the water. There are some cabins here and there, maybe some cabins here and there that are included on this. And so the board's thought was, following the lead of some other localities that have created this registry, to be able to identify the properties that are going out to rent, not really as a revenue gainer, because as you know, in our application, the revenue associated with this is pretty limited. You know, it might bring us $1,000 a year on a $28 million budget, so it's really not a revenue gainer. It's more for the ability to know where these properties are being registered, and its ability to protect the adjoining property owners to an extent. We'll have the ability to know the renters. And there are some rules and guidelines as far as how property owners have to act and behave, and the renters have to act and behave in order to be included on this short-term registry. I'm going to kind of, in the memo that Hope had sent you prior to the board meeting, if you go to the second page and you go to number 2 and you look under the short-term rental registry, there are 3 changes to this that occurred as a result of last month's meeting. B4, exceptions. These are exceptions to people that would have to register under this ordinance. And it reads, an occupant of the dwelling during the rental period, the operator must utilize the dwelling as his or her principal residence. The second change is in letter E. Number 1, violations. The addition that the operator will receive 14 business days to remedy the violation. And under general regulations C, the language was altered to clarify that anyone over the age of 3 counted as an occupant. Be glad to answer any questions that you may have at this time, or if there's further discussion amongst the Planning Commission members.
Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. Now, Mr. Bell, please, come up, state your name and your address, please.
I'm a pretty vocal person, but I'll come over here to this mic. It's probably getting recorded. So, good evening. My name is Dale McLeese, and I'm located at 66 Bridgeview Lane in Warsaw, Virginia. And I'm here to comment on the short-term rentals, just for some clarification or just, I guess, some education. I heard the gentleman here say that there's about 10 or 12. Need to go on the internet and look. There's probably 50 that are advertised in this county just for vacation rental by owner. I don't know how many Airbnbs there are and how many private people are renting them out that we don't know about. So short-term rentals are out there, and COVID's made it pretty much an issue across the country. I've got 2 parts to my comments. The first part is short-term rentals disrupt residential neighborhoods, makes residents feel uncomfortable with waves of strangers coming through your neighborhood. These people aren't screened, and they're coming and going through your neighborhood. You have no idea who these people are in your neighborhood. They're not your neighbors. They're not somebody who rented a house for 12 months that you get to know. Okay? There's no personal contact to obtain keys. We're in the digital world, folks. We got doors that are open with the app on your phone. We got payments that are being made to large corporations, and we have no personal contact with the renters that are coming into these facilities. Is that true in all of them? No, probably not. And in some cases, the owners are not even present in the county or the state. They're operating from another state, far away, doing everything with the phone, never know who they're involved with. They're poorly regulated, poorly managed, and unmitigated short-term rentals are eroding the communities in Richmond County for the full-time residents as well as the visitors. I know there's a lack of hotel rooms in Richmond County. It's probably something we could work towards, but they're getting ready to put a big one up across the bridge. And that does create a problem. We have people that visit this area to visit friends and relatives, and also there's a lot of wedding venues. But if the Board of Supervisors wants to continue with this, and it looks like that's the plan, there's some guidelines here that are being developed. But the number one question I have is that once the ordinance is adopted, who's going to enforce this ordinance? Who's that fall to? Is that a sheriff's department problem? I don't think so. Who's that go back to? Do we have somebody on county staff that's going to go make sure that the kids are under 3? I don't know how that's going to work. Are we going to spend our money, taxpayers' money, to hire a full-time position to take care of short-term rentals, to enforce regulation here? We're going to collect $100 by everybody that comes forward and says they have a short-term rental. That enforcement goes back to the neighbors in the neighborhood. They're going to call, and they're going to complain. They're going to complain to you. They're going to complain to the board members. So that's one of the problems I see with the ordinances going forward. Severe penalties for the owners. What happens if the owners are, okay, they violate something? What do we do? If you're going to adopt it, I look highly at other communities across the country that have adopted short-term rentals. They've added additional taxes at their county level to pay for sheriff department, EMS, and fire department. I mean, right now those services are being provided to the owner of that, who may have 2 individuals that live there, and now you're renting a home out, and there's 18, 20 people coming to stay for the weekend. Do you think that taxes our local system? Yes, very much. Parking, there's all kinds of parking issues. How are you going to do that? People are hauling boats. They're doing different things. One of the things that I looked at in ordinance that you should have somebody locally, if you adopt the ordinance, that can respond to take care of the problem within 30 minutes. Now, again, if you adopt an ordinance that says, okay, you've got to have somebody that's got to respond within 30 minutes to take care of the issue at hand, who reports that issue? That falls back on the neighbor that has an issue with what's going on in the rental. Should I call the sheriff's department every time that happens? I don't think so. They're already taxed enough. So owners of short-term rentals basically are making a profit for themselves, and they're passing that burden and those renters onto the county government and neighbors. So that's pretty much how I feel about it. If anybody has any questions, I'll answer them if I can. Okay, thanks for your time.
Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do we have any questions from the commission for Morgan?
Mr. Chair, could I address 2 things?
Yes.
Briefly.
Yes.
Gentleman asked about the enforcement of this, and it's a good question. The enforcement would come from the administrator's office. It would come from planning and zoning. It would come from community development side of things. It's no secret we're short-staffed there, so it brings up a legitimate concern there. The other thing I want to mention is really the county has 3 options at this point. This market can go unregulated, which it currently is, and there's nothing to say we have to regulate it. So doing nothing with an ordinance is not, we don't have to adopt an ordinance to regulate this market. It could be a free-for-all market. People can get on Airbnb. You could regulate it, which we're attempting to do in a fashion, or you can outright ban it. Now, that hadn't been brought up, that hadn't been mentioned, that hadn't been studied. I don't know, if that's a direction the county would want to go. Now, certain areas have a way to ban it themselves, and that's through homeowners associations. Not every area in Richmond County is under a homeowners association, I understand that. But HOAs will have a little bit more teeth in this type of thing if they want to write it into their bylaws or HOA associations to ban them. So that's really the 3 options that the county has right now. Leave them unregulated, do nothing, regulate them, try to create some sort of registry that we have a little bit of an idea of what's going on in our county in this market, or outright put an ordinance out there that says Richmond County is not in the Airbnb, VRBO market. Again, haven't done any studies on that. I don't know if that's the greatest idea, but those are your 3 options.
I have a question for Morgan.
Great.
From the last meeting, Morgan, if I remember correctly, you and Hope kind of got this from some of our neighboring counties.
Yeah, we
To the best of your knowledge, are they having any issues or major problems?
haven't asked,
Okay.
haven't asked as far as how their regulatory process is going on this. We're less staffed than even our neighbors, of similar size. Could reach out and find out. It'd be a good question to ask. We were really just fact-finding on what their regulations and ordinances look like. But I can reach out and ask the questions on how their enforcement and regulatory actions
The
go.
one question I would have is, hindsight's always 20/20. So if this is something one of our neighboring counties are and say, hey, what would you do differently? Or is this working good, or, let's not make the same mistakes everybody else is.
Right.
You probably will see there's more demand for it in Lancaster and Northumberland counties, more so than even here, so maybe they would have more insight. And it's kind of probably fairly new for Richmond County the last couple of years.
Yeah, it is, it certainly is.
And like Morgan said, we have less waterfront.
We have a whole lot less
Right,
water
that's
from
gonna
it.
make a big difference.
And that's what's drawing for the most part.
I've got a question for you. I know Hope did a lot of research on this. But for whatever reason, the exempt letter B in this is under the short-term rental has bothered me, while somebody would be exempt from having to register for this. And correct me if I'm wrong, or if this is a takeaway, is that a state mandated thing? I saw somewhere that I thought Virginia
Yeah,
had made it.
It was in her package, she sent it to us.
Yeah, so in this letter.
I saw she did that, but I didn't see where it was state mandated.
She says, and our county attorney is on Zoom, so maybe I'll give her some time to look at that while I'm talking. Under letter letter B, Vivian, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hope did identify that specific language was passed during the 2017 General Assembly that states a person who is licensed by the real estate board does not need to register for the short-term rental.
Okay.
So that portion itself, which would be B1, would be taken care of through the code. Registered pursuant to the Virginia Real Estate Timeshare Act. That again could be potentially a code mandated exemption. Licensed or registered with the Department of Health. Again, we took 5 or 6 different copies of different ordinances. Vivian, are you on with us?
I am.
Can you address those questions that JR has about the exemptions under B on the short-term rental? Have you heard us?
Yeah, I think in very general terms I can. I would need to look at it more closely to be more specific. But I think generally the reason for that is because of the amount of regulation already in place. Like for example, realtors who own these. Because they are regulated and there is already an enforcement mechanism, which actually is a good thing because it's not at the expense of the county or local government. Because if you have a problem or complaint, you could always lodge that with the Board of Realtors. So there is that mechanism in place, and I think that was the thinking. Again, I know this is a very broad answer, but I think that was kind of the scenario.
Thank you. The only other thing that I saw that we didn't have, whether or not we would even consider, I don't know, the city of Richmond in their guidelines had a line, and I'll just read it out. One of their items was ensure that the short-term renters do not create or permit a large gathering, event, or party at the property consisting of attendees that are not occupying the sleeping rooms of the property. This means that a short-term rental cannot be used for weddings, receptions, or other events. There are additional permitting requirements under different regulatory structures for these type of events. I thought that was good. I don't know if that's something we would consider, but just trying to do a little bit of research. That's something that kind of stood out. That
just to clarify, Mr. Chair, there's no rush by this planning commission to recommend this tonight.
That's what, gathering what I heard tonight and some of the questions it had, some of the things that especially was brought up, I think, is, ask these questions, and I think it'd be prudent of us to table this so that some of these questions, if you have more questions or concerns, I know we have a lot on our plates tonight, But it just seems to me that we'd be much better to table this and get more answers before going forward. And if we want to add some other things to it, to put a little bit more teeth into it, I think it'd be a good thing, is everybody, and I just need a head shake or whatever, that they think that's good. We'll table this until.
All right, is there any interest in us including some language that Mr. Fiddler just mentioned in some way?
I would think so. Yeah, because if you do, somebody comes down here and they want to have something like he was talking about, yeah, I don't think that's what should be. Either I'll have to agree with Mr. Fiddler.
And I think that was the intent of bringing this to the planning commission, from the board, is making sure that, again, if we choose to regulate this market, that we're doing it really for the benefit of the adjoining property owners, not for a revenue source for the county, but making sure that our adjoining property owners are aware and have a remedy, should they have an issue. Right now, should the gentleman have an issue next door to him in a VRBO, he can come to the county, he can go to the sheriff's office, but other than going through our existing zoning ordinance and trying to, declare something a public nuisance, which is extremely difficult to do, we have really no teeth in regulating this market. And until we put an ordinance in place, we won't. It'll be an unregulated rental market. And unless the county says, hey, we don't want them at all, and move on.
I have to agree with the statement you just made on that. That's the reason that I think the board wanted us to look at this, something we should look at, and I think we should take some time, and everybody on the commission, if they want to add some more language to it, to put more teeth into it, I think that'd be a good thing. I appreciate JR bringing up
under no
good things.
time constraints on this ordinance.
All right, well,
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fiddler, could you read that line again, please?
Ensure that the short-term renters do not create or permit a large gathering, event, or party at the property consisting of attendees that are not occupying the sleeping rooms of the property. This means that a short-term rental cannot be used for weddings, receptions, or other events. There are additional permitting requirements under different regulatory structures for these types of events.
Yeah, I really like that line. It does make sense, and I think we should consider adding that into our ordinance. For the fact if we don't, you're going to find the rental halls are going to be so outrageous. Well, let's just let them rent a property that's got an acre. We'll throw a tent up, and then we got 500 people back here. If it's not regulated, we need to do something about that.
And, like the gentleman said on Toski Creek, that's you don't want that as in a neighborhood. And so
right. I do like the language that you can't have anybody more there than are supposed to be there renting under the contract. I like it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
okay, so you got that
Yep.
down, and got to call another kind of see if they have any problem.
Yep.
Is that different or kind of falls in the same scope?
Where does a bed and breakfast fit in under this?
Hotel, lodging.
Vivian, did you hear that question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
He, Mr. Packard asked, where would a bed and breakfast fall under this ordinance?
Well, I was just looking at your zoning ordinance in that regard, actually. And what I was thinking is that you could define these, whatever place you come to, whatever point you come to in how you'd like to see these regulated or allowed, if at all. You could define them, and then also, if this would help, you could determine and limit where, like which zoning districts they're allowed.
Vivian, we have in this ordinance, we have that it would be added to the permitted uses for E1, R1, R2, and R3.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, I apologize.
Okay, that's fine.
So, yes, so you can regulate where they go. Now, beds and breakfasts, they are already defined in your code, to answer that part of the question. So they're already and allowed in certain zoning districts. So because it's defined differently already, they're already regulated. Now, that would be an issue, or it would come into play, if you will, if there were any crossover. In other words, if any portion of the definition, and I would have to look at both of them side by side, or if there were any overlap at all.
Morgan?
But otherwise, it should be two separate things, I would think.
Okay, thank you.
Can one assume that in a bed and breakfast, the owner's living there?
That's what I was thinking.
And it's not applicable, because we just said if the owner's living there, they're exempt.
Right.
So it's already in our code.
It's more of a regulated business at that point.
Sure.
You know.
But they're not
you
applicable to
You would
this.
think a bed and breakfast, to be registered as a bed and breakfast would have to go through, certainly some things with the
Health.
state health department and maybe VDAX as well. They would have to, we'll get some answers on that, Mr. Bell, and Mary, we'll get some answers on that. I would think the bed and breakfasts are going to have a much more stringent
No,
guideline.
I don't think it's
as a
applicable.
business.
The owner is there, living there, and per our
Right.
thing, we just said they're not applicable.
And this, you know, these Airbnbs, VRBOs are not businesses in the term that a bed and breakfast is a business. So, and to the gentleman's point, he was mentioning the taxation. Yes, absolutely. I mean, there is a method now for localities such as counties, and it just came into effect within the last year. We can go out for transient occupancy tax. We do not have a transient occupancy tax in the county at this point because we can't double tax what's already in the town of Warsaw. Really, the only thing at this point that we could tax would be the hotel inside the town limits. Now, these Airbnbs, VRBOs would qualify if the county were to ever bring into effect a transient occupancy tax. These would be included. The owners would be required to remit a certain percentage monthly to the county, like a meals tax, like a cigarette tax, lodging tax, and so forth. So, you know, is an option for the county looking forward. Don't know that the revenue stream again is heavy, you know, but everybody counts. You know, that's what we want to do. So yeah, we'll take the comments we've heard tonight. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a comment on the Airbnb that you said something about no more than the people that was there, be there. Well, how would you know who's going to be there? And the reason why I said that is because a couple of months ago, me and my family stayed at an Airbnb, and it was for a memorial, all of us to get together because my grandmother had passed away, and all of our name wasn't on, you know, the Airbnb. It was like 15 of us. We was very respectful. It was on the beach. We made sure we cleaned up. We followed all rules. All of the rules that was set forth for us. You know, we were all responsible adults who had something to lose if, you know, someone would do something crazy to get in trouble. So my question would be, why limit someone like me or whoever else to come and do something like that just because my name isn't on the registration form, I guess, when you sign up, because my uncle is in the military, so he used his military discount and he signed up for it. I mean, it was 15 of us. We all had fun respectfully. We was, you know, we respected our neighbors, did everything we supposed to do. We left it clean. Why should someone like that, like me, say for instance, in that situation, be limited on doing something like that because I have 15 people in my family that wants to come and do a memorial or something like that?
It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, it isn't so much who signs up for it. They allocate, what was it, two people, three people per bedroom.
Okay,
So
but
if it's, you know,
I had heard you say something about no more than, I think you said something like.
whoever was on the list.
Yeah.
And that's just how Richmond had it. I just was just reading what
That's
they
all
had.
I was, you know, the question
Yeah.
I was asking.
But you know, if it has
And
5
my
bedrooms and 3 people, then that's the way I read it. I don't know. I mean, that's something we can talk about.
The other issue, not to be sneaky, it's not gonna be an issue till somebody calls and says it's a raging party going on, and then you show up and it's 3 times the amount of people in the bedrooms. That's when you start asking the questions.
It's going to be kind of a self-regulatory market because, like we mentioned, we're not going to have people posted out undercover. on Friday and Saturday nights, making sure that our Airbnbs, it's gonna have to kind of be an honor system, it's gonna be a complaint-driven system, just really like our zoning ordinance is now, but again, you regulate it, you unregulate it, or you ban it. This gives it a little bit more teeth than it currently has as an unregulated market, and, I don't really know what else we could suggest.
You hear both sides and stuff, and that's what it is. Just let you know, it gives us some authority that we don't have now. Understand where you're coming from, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same respect, if you have somebody that comes down there and mentions for the 4th of July, and then they say, okay, got fireworks, and they just having themselves a good old time, and you get down there and you have 30 or 40 people, and it's just something to regulate. And what you just said, I don't think it'll be a problem. But to do something like that, if we don't have it regulated, they'll say, well, then you got, I think this is more just to have some teeth into going forward that we don't have now. It's just, this my understanding going forward and stuff. I just want to address that. Okay, is there anything else then?
And letter F in your current ordinance kind of is a very soft version of what JR was just mentioning. It says noise generated off the lot of the premise or the premises shall be in no greater volume or pitch than normally expected in a residential neighborhood. So that, that's a light version of of what he had read to you from the city of Richmond. So it's pretty broad in that interpretation of, and again, you could have a property owner adjacent that just doesn't like the fact that their neighbor is doing an Airbnb. And you could have a group of 4 people that are just as respectful as the neighbor, as the primary residents are. They're outside, they're grilling, they're sitting on the water in the evening, and, the property owner calls the administrator's office and says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones had people there, and they were really unruly this past weekend. Might not have really done anything, it was just the fact that the neighbor didn't like the fact that they're doing their Airbnb. So, it would be a challenge to regulate.
Well, like I say, it gives us something more than what we have today. We don't have no regulations on it today whatsoever can happen. So, food for thought, we've had some on the table, and we'll discuss it again, and we'll just table it till next time, and, can continue discussions that we have if you think of anything else or how you'd like to word it, and we'll bring it up next time and see, and if we don't get everything we want next time, we'll table it again until we get everything out and go. So, all right, thank you. The next one that we have on here is the 5 that we tabled over the last 2 months. We're going to handle that is Morgan speak on each one. We're going to handle each one separately, vote on each one separately. If you have any comments or anything that you want to say on each one of them, that's the way we're going to handle each one of the 5 that's before us that we're going to take up off the table now and go forward with. So, Morgan, I want to let you start with your first one.
All right, good. Thank you. As the chairman said, tonight we are here to discuss the 5 solar applications that IPS has submitted for parcels owned by Self-Business Trust. The Planning Commission has been discussing these applications since February of this past year. All required 2232 reviews have been completed, as well as all required public hearings. As we've noted previously, and we will review shortly, the site plans and project conditions have continued to evolve as we've heard comments and suggestions from both the Planning Commission and the public. I'd like to thank IPS for their willingness to alter plans and conditions throughout the process. They have been good to work with. I would also like to thank the Planning Commission, as always. Y'all do a great job of really getting into the details. This isn't the first solar application that you've seen, so you've been dealing with solar for about the past 18 months now at this point. Every agenda that we've had since, I believe, December of 2019 has had some form of solar on it. So you're understanding it well, and you put in a lot of good work. You give a lot of good recommendations and feedback to the Board of Supervisors, which I know they appreciate. It helps their lives become a little bit easier in this process. So as we get ready, we're going to review each project specifically to keep them segregated. But at first, I am going to go over the conditions to a high-level extent. There are a couple new additions that we have this week based off of some comments we've seen. So I'm not going to really spend a whole lot of time on anything unless it's in yellow. And this is our recommendations on buffers. So the previous language, and it has not been changed in your list of conditions, it's just here at this point. But the recommendation is to include into the conditions the newly recommended screening plan, which includes 2 rows of trees spaced 10 feet apart, front and back, and includes species that are native to our region. So you're going to ask, what is the new screening plan? This is the screening plan Mr. Packett has helped the county come up with. And as you look at this, this is just a very a typical section type drawing that would be incorporated. So your top line, you've got the fence. Your second line, you've got a row of trees spaced 10 feet apart. Your second row, you've got a row of trees spaced 10 feet apart. 10 feet apart from the front to back, 10 feet apart from the side to side. The species that are being suggested on our screening recommendation would be the Nellie Stevens holly, the eastern red cedar, the green giant arborvitae, the Pregnese viburnum, the China girl holly, the evergreen leatherleaf viburnum. And I would be happy to let Mr. Packett explain these trees to the Planning Commission if he feels the need to, and their suitability to our region.
What height? Starting height?
Starting height? 6 to 8 foot is going to be a good commercially available size. You start getting larger than that, and the demand we have in the nursery business, they don't exist right now. But they grow relatively fast.
I think the initial, the current conditions read to be a height of 6 foot within 3 years. That's the way the current conditions read. So, and let me keep going, and we'll circle back to these recommendations. You can kind of think on them while I'm talking a little bit. The next new recommendation is to include additional language that would require existing timber around individual projects to ensure a minimum of 50-foot screening buffer is left when harvested. This is something we hadn't talked about. We've been talking about the fronts of all of these projects, but what we weren't talking about, and I'm giving you an example here in an amateur drawing. This is, just for an example, this is our drinking swamp project that we'll get to here in a little while. And you'll see that red line, and that's, give or take 50 foot of trees. The property owner who owns 2360 could potentially clear cut that entire parcel in a separate business activity. At that point, you've got your facility exposed from the opposite side that we hadn't really thought of. We've been worried about the screening on the front. We hadn't really been worried about what happens when timber gets cut. So that would be the next recommendation. Again, IPS and I and Mrs. Mothershed had a good conference call on Friday. We discussed this. They have agreed in concept to both the first two, the screening plan as well as this 50-foot plan as well, to be able to make sure that if a timber harvest were to happen, that the backside buffering would stay. The third new recommendation, and this is from your chairman, and he might can explain it a little bit differently. This is a recommendation that electrical lines, as they leave the solar facility, would be underground until they reach the first pole outside of the facility, so as to not impact the screening plan.
Yes, I'll get that. If you go to that once you leave the system, if you look at the electric pad, it's got to come from underground and go up a pole. All right, and I've seen them where they right inside the fence, and then if you take it from that, first thing you got to do is you either got to trim the trees down or you got to cut them down. So what I'm saying is you've got to leave that screening alone all the way, come underground, you the first pole till you get past all the screening, then you come up the first pole, and the first pole is got to be set so that it does not hamper that pole at all. You don't have to do no trimming, cutting, or trimming of that tree ever. So they have to be far enough away from that tree. If the tree's going to get up there and it's going to grow 15, 20 foot, then it would have to be at least that far from the system. Of course, you've got to put a guy and anchors down, and most time you put 15 or 20 foot from the pole in. So you put your guy and anchor down about 10, 15 foot away from the trees, and the pole is another 15, 20 foot, then you should have plenty distance. And that way the screening itself will not be affected at all with the overhead line. I have to come in now, we've got to trim these trees, or we've got to cut them. So that's where I, on that right there when I was viewing some of these systems and stuff, they like putting the first bowl in the system and underground's less possible than coming up. So that's where I came up with that one.
Okay. Again, I'm not going to go through these conditions in great detail. You've seen them for the last couple of months, and other than these 3 recommended changes, there are no other recommended changes at this time. Again, these projects are set back a minimum of 300 feet from any roads or any residences and include 50-foot setbacks on the sides that are not impacted by roads or residences. All the projects will have separate construction traffic plans. As was mentioned, the set of conditions that you have in your board packet is really just one copy. We didn't send you 5 copies of the exact same level of conditions because for each project they're relatively similar with the exception of addresses and different roads impacted. Again, road repairs would have to be bonded. A bond would have to be put up in 100% of the anticipated repairs prior to the construction. Environmental concerns, that's our stormwater management, that's our erosion and sediment control. Our permitted materials, this is something that we get some discussion on. This does prohibit the use of cadmium, telluride, cadmium, beryllium, Gen-X, and other materials prohibited by federal or state agencies. This would be with the National Electric Code and International Fire Code. The decommissioning procedures are outlined in the conditions as well. They're pretty standard to what we've seen over the last couple of projects that we've looked at. Adding cost reimbursement as far as county costs as we work with our engineers or attorneys to facilitate this process. They would reimburse those type costs. Any questions on our conditions at this time? Anything that I have not mentioned? Anything you'd like to discuss? Yes, sir.
The only thing we got up there, Becky was saying that trees are available 6 to 8 foot now. What is that?
I'm just saying there's been such a surge in demand on nursery stock during the last COVID pandemic that larger material is probably not going to be available right now.
But I say
6 to 8 foot is about the biggest you're probably going to find of any of these trees.
But you do have those in stock and they live.
I don't have them, no, but I think we may have to go with smaller, but 6 to 8 is about the largest I think you'll be able to find.
Well, the survival rate goes down.
And the
too.
smaller, the better the survival, the smaller you start with. Less transplant shock. So I have to go with a 4 to 5 footer to start with. That may be more available.
So that's your suggestion, 4 or 5.
But it would still meet the 3-year, 6
Right.
foot
You
requirement.
just have to plant something that's going to make that 6 foot mark within 3 years. So I wouldn't go any smaller than 4 foot.
Which
Probably,
would be quicker than the spruce.
yeah, much quicker. That would grow about that much easier.
Right.
But 4 or 5 foot is what you're suggesting.
Whatever's commercially available
Yeah.
between 4 and 8 feet is what I would
See,
recommend.
ma'am, I just want to make sure that that's
Right.
put in there, nothing no smaller than that would grow, and I'd like to
No,
thank.
you don't want to go smaller than 4 feet. It won't make the 6 foot mark.
So what number have y'all settled on?
I'm just listening to what he said, what is available at the time, but he's saying 4 foot minimum is, it's what we've got out there right now.
Minimum 4
Yeah.
feet, and I don't know
You
if
get-
you would put a max on it or not. I mean, it's just, a bigger one's fine, it's just the survivability may not be as good.
All the species you picked out, Mary James, in 3 years' time would be able to grow 2 foot if we started at 4 foot.
Probably not the hollies, the green giant arborvitae will. That's the fastest growing one of all, but it's more susceptible to bagworms, that's why I put other options on it. I think if we go with the hollies, you're gonna have to start out with a 5 to 6 footer. Arborvitaes can go to a 4 foot.
I've got to get to where he's saying, and whatever he's saying is what, if you got bagworms, I do know one thing, you get bagworms into them, they're not gonna last long. They
Not
get up
unless
there,
somebody's taking care of them.
and you get up there 6, 7, 8, 9 foot, and then they get bagworms and they die, now you right back down. Again, that's a concern I have, because I've had a couple trees that, did real well, then got bagworms into them, and I couldn't get way up to spray them and all
Now,
that.
these conditions in this screening recommendation plan doesn't stipulate which of these trees that IPS will be able to plant. these are 6 trees that have been identified, that the county has identified as native trees that they would be able to choose from. So, like he just said, there was one tree he just mentioned that should start at 5 feet, where other trees should start at 4 feet. You know, maybe he needs to give a specific number.
I can go with more specifics if you would like, but I just made a recommendation of species, and they're not all native. The green giant arborvitae is not native. The eastern red cedar obviously is. It grows everywhere around here. But those are the 3 that I would recommend as your taller line, and then I was going with an evergreen large shrub to fill in the gaps on the alternating spacing.
I like it, it was good.
I have a suggestion, Mr. Chairman. You know, we've stipulated that they need to be 6 foot in 3 years, and I think we put the onus on IPS. I don't think we should recommend what they should start with or where it should be, but they just need to make sure that they're 6 foot in 3 years. That takes us completely out of the loop.
I understand where you're coming from, but, you know, ain't got a crystal ball saying that's gonna happen.
Sure.
In my personal opinion, I'm just going by somebody that, in the business, that understands what is best to plant now, that could get to that. Bagworms is a problem with me on that species, and maybe taking that one out.
My issue is that we tell them they need to start with a 4 footer, and it doesn't make it to 6 foot in 3 years, they're gonna say, well, that's
The
You said 4 foot.
That's what you told us to start
Right.
with, so I think we put I agree
biggest
with you.
problem you're gonna have now is the nursery business is under so much strain. There's almost nothing available of anything right now.
I got you. That is a problem. Understand what you're saying, and you know, it's 6 foot. Just because we say that you start with 4 foot, doesn't take up the thing that within 2 years, that 4 foot's gotta be 6 foot.
Right.
We still can add that language in there.
Right.
We ain't, just because we say you gotta start with 4 and take the 6 foot 8, doesn't mean we take the 6 foot 8. It just says you start with this size and then it has to be 6 foot at that time. In just my personal opinion. The screening really is concerned to me if you're doing these, especially these smaller ones, that's going around, that's gonna be more in neighborhoods and around homes. It's not got existing things, and I've got to go with the experts, but I do know bagworms is a problem. And like you say, unless you go and spray them and get rid of it, it could be a problem. And then you start losing trees, now you've got gaps.
So is there anything written that says only plant and forget, or do they need to maintain?
No, they've got to maintain.
They gotta replace any dead ones, they have to come back and replant.
Because I see dead ones up at Montrose.
Yep.
I see dead ones in Hanover.
Okay.
They'll be replaced, it's just they're probably waiting until a better time to replace them. You don't wanna replant anything right now.
Well, I got it, yeah. But they've been dead, they didn't die last week either. All right.
I think this is a better buffer than anything else we've seen.
Yeah,
This is a good plan.
yeah.
Mr. Bowen, under section 210D of the conditions, vegetative buffer, talks about dead ones.
Thanks, Mark.
I'm just a little, like I said, I'm just a little concerned about the, maybe, you know, cut out the ones you think is gonna have major problems. Marion, you know more so than I do. As far as, that's just my concern on the buffer.
So can I ask an unrelated question? Some of us may or may not know that, but I assume that there's a gate to each one of these. I assume the gate is locked. What happens if somebody needs to get inside there? What's the process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, and you guys all know me, but my name is Scott with IPS Solar. Usually we'll put a lockbox on it, and I don't know if it's part of these conditions or not, but it's customary that we give a copy. We have a fire safety plan that we go, or at least we speak with the fire department, and we give. We either have a lockbox on site with keys, or we give all the appropriate authorities access to the keys, so that they have access to it.
Conditions,
I think it's in there, but I want
page 3.
All right.
Number 7 on page 3, the applicant shall submit an emergency response plan with the submission of the site plan. Emergency response plan shall include fire suppression methods that can be deployed during both the construction and operation of the project. The ER plan shall also include a program of education and training to be provided for county emergency response staff covering on-site emergency response. And that's been standard in all of our conditions, and that is something that we intend to be on with these solar companies as they are developing and building to make sure that our first responders have a contact and have the ability to understand what it is they're looking at.
Scott, I have a question for you. I don't know if you got a copy of this, but Ms. Coates sent a letter in referencing a fire that happened at the Essex County solar farm.
You said a fire?
A fire happened.
I do know there was a problem with something in Essex County, which is why I do know there's a problem. I didn't know it was a fire.
That's what it said. I don't know anything about it. I just want to have some answers from you as to what could potentially cause a fire.
Now, first thing, and it's very important that I preface this, I'm not an engineer. I'm a lawyer, so I could give you the, without getting into too many details, my understanding of the panels is that actually it's very hard for me to talk about what happened there because I don't know a whole lot of stuff. But I do know that I've read a significant amount of reports that say that even if there was to be a fire, and it would have to burn, and I think one of those reports I included, it would have to burn significantly hotter than any type of normal residential fire in order to cause any issues, and I don't believe that that's possible.
Well, this just said the grass caught on fire underneath due to the panels, but I'm trying to understand if this is true, how could that happen? I want some clarifications on all this.
I have not heard of any. I did not think that there was a fire issue at the Essex County one. So I guess I did not. Unless I was able to research it, which I most certainly can do for you, I wouldn't be able to comment on what causes it. I've never heard of. I mean, these are 90% silicone. There's two types of panels. The one that we're supposed to be using based off of, or that we're mandated to use based off of the stuff is the better type of the two panels. The one that doesn't have the cadmium, it's pretty much 90% silicone with some silver and some other stuff. I think that makes a lot, I don't even, to be honest, even the other ones are still relatively stable and designed to go into extreme weather conditions, like North Pole style weather conditions. But these are even better than those and don't have any of those conditions. And again, I do think that there's a report that I sent in, not with this first one, with the second one, that talks specifically about fire hazards. That goes into a lot more of the technical detail that you could read. And that report was done by a government agency in Massachusetts, I think.
Just Coach, do you know anything about this?
Yes, I found it later on that the fire was determined it was an electrical problem that caused the fire, and 6 acres was destroyed, the panels and everything.
So something basically shorted out in the wiring?
Evidently.
Well, and the rest of the story is the gate was locked and they couldn't get in, or Morgan can.
That's certainly, again, I can't.
That's why my question was there.
In my answer, I certainly can't speak to any other development, but what we're trying to develop.
No, I understand.
That would never happen with us because we have very good planning in place. We have a good fire safety plan. We have the lockbox code.
No, I like your answer. That was the others, I believe, had to wait a while to get in.
And Mr. Bowen, I reached out and I spoke to the Chief of Emergency Services in Essex County about 2 weeks ago, and he didn't have a whole lot of additional information. He just said that the biggest concern that they had as far as their emergency services went was their lack of training and their lack of the ability. It wasn't the fire, that wasn't their concern. It was just the lack of not having the training or the ability to even get into the site,
right.
Which is a concern, and that's a bad concern.
Could I say one thing on that subject? I'm assuming the grass was dry because I grow small grain. Have you ever caught a barley field on fire accident?
Yeah, it goes up.
I've seen people throw cigarette butts out, and 20 acres will go on in about minutes. So it's the dry conditions of the grass under it. I don't know what ignited it. I've had burns go bad. I've had people throw cigarettes. I've had brakes hang on a truck. I've had mysterious fire starts. So I think the question was, how did it get in case it does have to put it out?
We don't use grass underneath our panel. We use a deep-seated native mix. So it's actually, it's pretty cool, and I think it actually, the root systems are significantly deeper, which helps with erosion control and things along those.
And the state's green alone.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
The native grass.
I've got a couple of questions. One, your electrical equipment pad, what is on that pad?
Again, that, if I could get you answers more, I know, the thing that bothers me is I know you have a, it doesn't bother me, but I don't want to misspeak at all. And I know that you have 20 years of experience in the electrical field, and I certainly don't want to misspeak and say the wrong thing.
Just let you know it's 48 years, not 20.
20.
He's complimenting you.
So,
Yeah.
so I, you know, all those answers, I could get you to as specific as you like with our engineer. But that's, yeah.
All right, so then you're not gonna know how many poles on the other side that the main path's gonna be on?
I could get you, again, I could get you that information.
Yeah, need to know that information, because the one site that I took pictures of, there's 7 poles. And I know that underground goes up one, you've got metering equipment, you've got breakers, you've got capacitors, you've got inline switches, you've got all different kinds of equipment that's gonna be protected going in and coming back out. So, yeah, that, so far as that's a question that I would certainly like to be answered. How many poles and how far apart of those poles are gonna be. And the only other one, before we go into every simple one, is I'm still in here with the screening around there on the trees and stuff. I just don't like the part about the, maybe having, the bags and stuff on the trees and everything. I'll maybe take that species out of the mix.
Well, is that something that, let me ask you all, if you were to plant a species, here's the thing. A fast-growing species that makes a beautiful screen quick is also more susceptible to other problems. That's just, the slower nature it is in growth, the more durable and hardy it is. So you gotta balance that.
Pick your poison.
But if you put something in that gets bagworms, is anybody going to be spraying them? Is there a maintenance crew that would spray them? If not, then maybe we should steer away from something that has a potential for bagworms in the future. That's what I'm saying.
Well, and think about now you're putting in herbicide around the neighborhood. Just thinking out loud, playing devil's advocate.
Well, so does farmers. We all, I mean, you know, what's the difference?
I understand.
But we can do whatever. I'm just making that suggestion that either they have to be maintained and cared for, or we need to pick another species that's less susceptible. But it may not grow as fast.
Well, you're the expert on that, not me.
Well,
That's the reason I'm getting on that. You know, I have to go with your suggestions, because I think you've done a good job of coming up with these. I'm just expressing my opinion.
You know, I think at some point we gotta rely on the builder and the developer to do the right thing, and hopefully they'll do that. You know, like you say, with the fast-growing trees, that's what neighbors want. So
right.
You know, it's kind of, like you say, it's a double-edged sword. I would think we've given a good plan, which you've drawn up, and we just hope that they stick with something that's suitable. And if it's something dies, you know, it's listed in the laws that they have to replace it. It has to be replaced. So,
And that's for the full 30-year lease?
It is.
as long as it's operational.
So,
Okay, I'll drop my one on that one and leave it to what you had said.
So we're going to stick with, from what I'm understanding, just a requirement that it be 6 feet of height within 3 years. And however the builder wants to
From
do that.
From what's been suggested.
I just think leave it at 6 feet within 3 years, and I think we can nitpick this to death all night.
Okay?
Okay, regarding the second question of the 50-foot requirement for the existing timber, now this doesn't exist on all of our projects, but this potential could happen. I think it exists on our drinking swamp project. That's probably the only problem, Michael's listening, but that's probably the only major project that it relates to as far as a timber work cut. The back of the property would be exposed. But with that being said, I mean, does anybody have, I mean, is that a fine suggestion to kind of incorporate as we move forward, as well as the underground and that the chairman had recommended as far as getting it outside the facility to the first pole in an underground fashion?
I have a question about the timber.
Okay.
Is this just specific to Mr. Self's properties, or is this something we would have?
No, at this point, it's just specific to these 5 applications.
Okay. Because I think that would be something we would want to look at incorporating down the road, but I didn't know if this was.
Yes. No, this is just at this point specific to the 5 applications in front of us, you know, on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, you're right. Future applications.
I like the conditions. I think they're all well thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're 95% consistent with what you've seen in the past. I mean, it's kind of been a work. Each project we get, the conditions get a little bit better probably because we think of things. The screening plan for one. I mean, you know, it's nice now if this is a screening plan that everybody somewhat likes, if someone else comes to us wanting a solar facility, we can straight up say this is the screening that we're going to require, you know, as part of the conditions. So, you know, that's an add-on this time. It's going to be a good thing. All right. Well, with that being said, I will jump into the projects one by one. I'm not going to go over these details. We've seen this enough. Project number 1 is going to be our Richmond Hill Road project. This is the Richmond Hill Road, Martins Valley, 34.5 acre, 5 megawatt project owned by Self Properties Business Trust, zoning A1. Your location is in the arrow, about 700 or 800 feet off of Route 360 in all of Richmond Hill, Martins Valley. There are three site plans associated with this, so I'll be able to show you where it started, where it was, and where we are as of now. This is the only amended site plan you'll see as of since the last meeting. So your first site plan on this project obviously had panels coming out to Martin Valley, pretty close over here to the property lines. You'll see in the second site plan, you'll see that portion did bump back a little bit off of Martins Valley to get to 300 feet. And in conversations that we had at the last planning commission meeting, brought the panels to a square fashion. So you can see it real fast as I click through it. Started there, and that's where it is now. So that's what I mean as we've gone through these applications. They have adapted and changed. The conditions have changed, and I appreciate IPS working with us on that. So that is the current format of that project, and as a recommendation to the planning commission based on the conditions, the stringent conditions of conformance with the Richmond County zone ordinance, and the limited impact to adjacent property owners on this project in specific, would recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors on this project, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions from the commission for Morgan? Comments, questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval or denial of this request?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Thank you.
And just to clarify, these motions that are being made are with the conditions as amended with the 3 discussion points we've had tonight. You know, just to, so we're on the same page. Okay.
As intended.
As intended. Okay. Thank you. Our next project, I'm calling project number 2. This is Richmond Road. This is the project that is adjacent to Nutrient Ag Solutions and is a 2 megawatt project on tax map 2544, 20 acres in size, zoned agricultural. You'll see the location here, right beside crop production or nutrient. And again, you'll see 2 site plans. This was the project that went through the public hearing first. So this one's kind of been away from us for a couple of months because this got ahead of the other 4 applications. This went through 2232s and public hearings prior. So your first copy of the site plan, again, had the panels encroaching into adjacent properties fairly close. I don't know what that number says, but I want to say it was about 180 feet. And then the revised plan shows the enhanced buffering. They had already planned to enhance buffer this one prior to tonight with our new plan. Again, 300 feet from road, 300 feet from the residences, yeah, they again worked with us on this site plan. So again, based off of the conformance with the zoning ordinance and the conditions and the limited impact, we would recommend for this one approval to the Richmond County Board of Supervisors.
Any comments or questions?
You know, this is probably out of sequence here. Which should we not approve all, or I call the other one the Mulberry Road, but I know it's not on Mulberry. You know, would it, I think I asked you, Mr. Self, last month, if for some reason that next project wouldn't be approved, would you be against taking the south portion and adding it to this one? Or I know you said something about messing up the queue, or but
My understanding is it's not allowed.
it's not allowed. Okay.
Just to make sure I understand, you're saying increase if the next one, which was not to be approved, to add part of the other property?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not in favor of the next one.
Understood.
But if you took the bottom piece, which I equate to about a quarter of this, you would be adding another half a megawatt
Right, so
to the system, but.
Right, the rules of community solar don't allow us to go onto more than one parcel.
Okay.
Even if the parcel's owned, but that's called co-location, and while the rules aren't 100% sure, or aren't 100% settled yet, I'm pretty sure that that's not going to be allowed.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Different tax max numbers, different parcels, you can't go in.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
Okay.
Who made those rules? Just curious.
Legislation, legislative intent. There's a whole series.
State or federal?
State. There's the state community solar legislation.
I have a couple of comments on this one. I have both of them are problems that I have. One is the excess road and the 3-phase line close to one of the pieces of property going right down there beside the home. And the other one is, and it didn't really dawn on me until I got this letter from Ms. Coates about the fire. If a fire does occur in now, possibility, the worst problem that you have there is this being a solar plant, electricity going through it. You have to have the power company in there to take these out there. Fire companies and stuff can't go in there and start putting their fires with the potential of getting electrocuted. We've had a lot of house fires, we've had a lot of fires in the past, and utilities have to be on site and cut the line off before firefighters can go in there and do that. And the reason that I say that, and at one time I said, well, it's close to a chemical plant, and that ain't gonna be too much of a problem. But if a fire goes with that and happens to go into that chemical plant, you're not just having the adjacent homeowners, you're having a community that could probably have a disaster coming in now. So for those two reasons, on this one, I can't. To me, this is not the right location because of those factors. I just wanted to state that on my part. And it is a concern, firefighters going in now, fighting a fire with potential electricity and stuff. So, just on my end. Any other comments or questions or concerns?
I have one. As far as the entrance going to this, will you be able to, everyone that's leaving out, will you be able to go directly, make a left and go west? Or do you have to do like Nutrient, the chemical place does? All trucks has to go down and make a U-turn at the next median. Which is a problem. This is my neighborhood and I noticed this.
You got to turn right, Morgan.
You got to turn right?
You got to turn right.
Okay.
Nutrient and Alliance, they've been doing it for 50 years, but I understand your concern.
It's dangerous.
Nutrien, when it was Alliance, offered to put a crossover in front at their expense, and the state would not do it. So I don't know how to other answer that. Yes, you have to turn right to go to a turnaround.
Any other concerns, comments? If not, do we have a motion to accept or deny?
I move that we accept as presented with the amendments presented.
Do I hear a second? Vote in a second.
Motion dies for lack of a second.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so motion dies with us then.
Is there an alternate motion?
Do we have a motion to deny?
That would be your next.
Yeah, that'd be the
reasonable
next,
motion.
next thing. Do we have a motion to deny the request on this one?
I make a motion to deny the request.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor to deny this location, signify by raising your right hand. You got those down. All those disagree, raise your right hand. You abstaining, no, Mary?
I'm abstaining on this.
And Mary abstaining on this one. So you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2. Okay, so this request is denied.
Okay, third project is the Richmond Road, Mulberry Road project, 27.9 acres, 3 megawatt project. Tax map 2542, 32.77 acres total. Again, zoning A1. Your arrow here shows you the location. You know where that is. Your original site plan showed it, again, encroaching into property lines, encroaching into residential homes, encroaching into the road. The amended site plan brought it back significantly, 300 feet from all residential properties. Based upon the following, this project is recommended for denial to the Richmond County Board of Supervisors based off of the substantial impact to the adjacent residential community along 360 and Route 619 Mulberry Road. This is the absolute most residential project that the Planning Commission or Board will have to consider with about 20 different property owners directly adjacent to it. And that was kind of my reasoning for making that recommendation to the Planning Commission.
Any comments, questions? I will agree with Morgan on this being a residential, and again, the placement of the three-phase line and the access road right next to a piece of property going out of there. Those are two reasons that I would have to agree with what the recommendation from the county is. Any other? Do I have a motion to accept or deny?
I have a motion to deny due to the impact.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, you got 1, 2, you got it. Thank you. More?
Project number 4 is Drinking Swamp Road, 4 megawatt project, tax map 26112, location, original site plan, current site plan. This project is recommended for approval based off of the conformance with the zoning ordinance, stringent conditions, and limited impacts for 2 adjacent property owners.
Any discussion, questions? On this one, like I said the first time coming in here, we do not have an easement that goes all the way to the road across 360, but Mr. Self has stated that he's talked to the property owner and they have agreed to give one. So I will go by what he has said on that one. This one here, I would like to make a condition that the three-phase line be moved away from the property line approximately 100 foot, not knowing, how the poles and stuff's going on.
Say what now?
If you go down there after the access road, see the access road, with the three-phase line that comes from that's been by, most of the three-phase line has been right by the access road. If you want to keep the access road, that's fine, but the three-phase line, I'd like to get rid of 100 foot from the property line to that person's house right there. that line is all within that piece of property, so moving it 100 foot away gives it a little bit more distance from the property.
You're saying slide it down towards the center of the lot?
Yes, I was gonna go in the middle of the lot, but I believe give them 100 foot. If you go right up there to where the property's at,
Talking about here,
right there, put 100 foot from that property line.
moving this
Yeah, moving the three-phase line that's gonna come from the station.
southwest.
Well, if that's southwest, yes.
I'm just curious, what's your reason behind that? Is it just because of the
Well, once you get up there, like I said, until he tells me how many poles it is and that distance coming out of that piece of property and stuff, I really want to look at 7 poles within 150 foot. That's got all this equipment and stuff of it, that close to my piece of property. I really wouldn't want to look and see that because that's not going to be buffered at all. I would say in the middle of the lot, but I know they don't want to go too awful very far from where they're at, so it just gives a little bit more distance away from the piece of property, the property line, when the person's going in there. That's my reason behind that.
Harry, would it suit you better if it went at the back through the woods?
Not really, because you'd be cutting down woods all the way to 360.
It will be underground, I believe, is part of our conditions.
Would it be underground all the way up to the pole, or?
No, that's what I'm talking about. Again, I'm gonna go by the pictures I took. If you wanna see it,
Yeah.
that's what they'll be looking at. It's the line, once it comes through the station, it's the three-phase overhead line that's gonna go to the other line that's gonna be going this way.
100 feet is not a big deal for us.
That gets it out and not holding on to her. Michael, if he's gonna, farm it or whatever, further away would be even better. But I mean, away from the property line. I'm just looking at the aesthetics of it, of coming in there and seeing all those, number of poles that goes there. I mean, if the other property owner is willing to give you an easement across her property, no, the best place for that line is there, not cutting the woods going down through there, going into 360.
That's agreeable to the rest of the planning commission. We will identify that in the conditions as amended. That's agreeable.
You're the expert.
No, all I'm doing is just, I just think, looking at that three-phase line coming, okay, it gives a little bit more distance from the house and the screening that you've got. That way he may not be able to see it from his home. He'll see it going in and out, but maybe not from his back door or window out there, because it'll be a little bit further away from the piece of property with all those poles.
That's fine, Harry, I have no problem with it, but between those two properties is a line of 25-foot cedar trees down. You can't see between and down anyway, so it's screened on both sides by 25-foot trees.
Okay, well, if the trees are there, then it's better to have 100 foot off that, because then they don't have to trim them trees.
I don't have a problem.
I say, then it's even better to get away from those trees, so you don't have to trim it.
I'm fine with it.
Good enough.
If IPS solar is, I'm just saying.
I don't see any issue I don't see
No.
it making that big of a difference where we fall into.
And I'm just going by, you said you had talked to the owner at the other end down there going across the property, and he said he didn't have a problem with it, so.
Verbally, but I don't have it right.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you talk to him, I'm just going by you said verbally, and if they realize the line's gonna go past there, then that's the route to take, not going down through them woods and cutting all those trees down through the woods and then opening it up from 360 back
I
up.
had the two options.
Yeah.
I didn't know which one was gonna work best. Engineer department and you, of course, I know better than I do. I'm just giving you options.
It's better to come up that road with the three-phase line and go around that way. Okay, with that condition added, do I have
I'll move that we accept it with conditions.
Second.
all those in favor? Please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? You abstaining? Yeah. Okay, she's abstaining. Okay, that one passes. All right.
Last project to consider is project 5. This is off Calvary Church Road, 5 megawatt site as well, self-property business trust. Again, A1 zoning. You see it here at the red arrow, about a quarter of a mile in off of Route 3. You'll see the original site plan, and you will see the amended site plan as its current state, 300 feet off of roads and houses. Again, we recommend this project for approval based on the conformance with the county zoning ordinance, the stringent conditions that the planning commission has worked on, as well as the limited impact to the adjacent property owners.
Any comments, questions, concerns on this one?
I thought of one thing, and I don't know if it's worth thinking about, I mean, a lot of my decision is on the impact with the neighbors. And on this drawing, would it be suitable for you all to extend the setback with the buffer on the right side or the east side all the way to the road?
So you want us to put instead of having it buffered right next to where the panels are, you want the trees to essentially come out?
Or just, extend that line on the right all the way out? I'm thinking about these 6 homes across the road to block that. You're gonna have a line that runs all the way down the edge, but when you get to the end of the fence, even though that's 300 feet off the road, they'll be able to see that across the road. If you extended that line all the way up.
You're saying extend the vegetative buffer
all the
beyond
way
the fence to the
all the way to
road?
road. Yep.
Instead of just putting it with the fence,
It's
keeping it
already
going.
screened on 2 sides already.
I'm just trying to think of some extra buffer to eliminate that impact from 6 other homes.
If it makes a difference between accepting and denying, we'll do it. I mean, it is, remember, there are gonna be trees that are gonna be, it's not, we work in a partnership with the landowner, and this is, right here is land that he would have otherwise been able to farm, and he won't be able to farm if we do it that way. But if that's the difference it needs to make, so we can make you guys happy.
And I'm not talking the whole stretch, I'm just talking with that one line.
You're just talking, JR, from here.
Yeah. Oh,
I see, so you don't even want it to
hedgerow.
be, you don't even want it to be boxed in, you just want the
right.
2 end
Yeah.
lines to be known.
300 more foot extended.
Oh, just that one line, not all the way out, not that whole,
I'm okay with you all.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
my decision's based off impact, so I'm just thinking of something to hide.
Trying to accommodate, and trying to understand, and trying to.
Yeah, I mean, that's extra trees, if it means, it's not a problem.
Question on the access road that comes out there, I see it's on a turn. Do y'all talk to VDOT on these things as far as sight lines and stuff all concerned?
Yes.
Yes, that is, yes.
It's in the sight line, they can see coming into there, no problem?
We haven't submitted, this is all preliminary at this point.
Okay.
As plans become drawn, engineered, it is potential that road could have to shift, down a little bit. We will submit all of these plans to VDOT, they will give entrance permits, and they will not give an entrance permit if it doesn't, qualify for their entrance permit. So, I understand it's mapped there at this point.
Okay.
It could shift 25 feet, based off of that turn. You are correct.
If it shifts, then I would say shift the 3-phase line also from that property line. Along with the road, because that's where the line, is probably gonna come, they're gonna go. If the road shifts, I would say shift the 3-phase line coming into the road.
Okay.
You got that whole.
Yeah, as long as everybody's agreeable with that, and we got that on recording, we'll go back through the recordings and get all the stuff, and get the conditions amended to get it to the board of supervisors, each one independently, so.
Yeah, if you have any other questions, someone wants it, I had, just give me a call, because I got them in mind, and they're all up here too. Okay.
Better call him tonight.
Okay,
I'm teasing here.
I'm good with it, man, I'm good. We have a, motion to accept or deny.
So moved as presented.
Second.
All those in favor of this, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? I think you abstaining, she's abstaining. Okay. That concludes number 6 with the impacts that going forward. These are all recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, and, round 2 for y'all going forward on the other ones that makes the final condition, decisions on these going forward. I want to thank you for all the stuff that you've done. And
But
some
really
of
appreciate y'all's time on this too.
Yeah,
I know the board very much appreciates the time that the planning commission goes through these applications. I know you don't get paid much for it, but it's very appreciated.
I appreciate Mary, and I just want to make that statement in there, all the work that he's done to help with the buffering and everything. It meant a whole lot going forward. I appreciate it, though.
Thank you, Mary.
Marion, on that, of course, I thank all the board.
pleasure to meet you guys, and thank you all for listening, and thank you very much for all of your help.
We'll be in touch. Appreciate working with y'all as well.
Okay, number 7, other business. Any other business? Anybody have any other business?
Yeah, I just want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July coming up. Everybody be healthy and safe, and watch out for the other idiots on the road.
Thank you.
We'll see you next month.
Go to your local
Anything
Airbnb
else?
party.
Morgan, you got anything else?
No, sir. I'm out.
Yeah. I would just like to thank Morgan and Liz for keeping us straight, and Hope, for keeping us all straight through all of this, and do appreciate it. So, with that, we adjourn.